everyone, Enrique here. Welcome to another review. We conclude our view into Daredevil Born Again Season 2. So we're going to take a look at episodes 7 and 8. We're going to take a look at what happens in those episodes, what happens to the characters that inhabit that world, what would happen not only in this show but also moving forward, what will be the consequences of every character's action, and what will be my overall view on Daredevil. So this is why I wanted to create this Marvel Knight trilogy, so I can talk about my thoughts on Daredevil and give my thoughts on why he is, in my opinion, a Knight of New York. So without further ado, let's explore episode 7, The Hateful Darkness. We start out the episode by seeing Karen Page being prosecuted by the police and be taken to the 5th precinct. At least that's what I think. It probably is a 4th. I can't remember all the numbers of the precincts in New York, but let's just say that she's taken by the police, by the NYPD, instead of the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. After all, Daredevil discover Red Hook, and they trying to make sure that all the businesses of Wilson Fisk are as clean as possible. Something that unfortunately is not gonna pay it off, especially after everything that happened in the last few episodes. We also learned that Fisk went to jail to see Karen, trying to intimidate her, trying to make her realize of the situation, and yet Karen is not afraid of Wilson. Not anymore. After everything that she has been put through and everything that Wilson and Vanessa, on that matter, have taken from her, she's not afraid of confronting Wilson. And even though he starts choking her, it just shows how lost, but also how fearless Karen Page has become over the years. And that is something that is good to see. But at the same time, it also worries me because we have seen Karen Page's dark side, and we have seen struggling with her choices and making decisions that even Matt will consider too much. Regardless of that, we see that she gets one phone call, so Wilson tells her to make it count. So I actually like that. We later see Jessica confronting Mr. Charles, warning him not to go forward, to not go after her or even her daughter Danielle, trying to ask what's the deal between him and Wilson and where is Luke Cage. As we learn in this episode, Luke Cage is now working with Mr. Charles, although judging by how Jessica is putting it, as well as Mr. Charles, it seems like it's not a matter of choice. Somehow maybe Mr. Charles blacklisted him or blackmailed him with Jessica and Danielle as collateral damage. And considering Jessica's problems with her powers, that it might be something that Luke might say, okay, I'll do it, just leave Jessica and Danielle alone. But I'm getting into that further when we go to the end. For now, we see that now Jessica and Matt, as well as Cherry, are talking about what is Wilson Fisk's next plan. He wants to kill Governor McDuffie in order to prevent him from being suspended from being the mayor. And thus he hires an assassin in order to go after the governor and make sure that everything is still under his control. So Matt has to make a decision, especially now that Karen Page is going to trial, and that is something that worries him because after the trial of the swordsman, now Matt has more reasons to distrust the people who are going to prosecute her, because they're going to treat her as an unhinged vigilante. And that is something that he now has to confront and has to deal with. Matt has to make the toughest decision, in which he has to set free Benjamin Poindexter. Even though he hasn't forgiven him for everything that happened with Foggy, with Father Langton, with Agent Nadim, he realizes that he needs Dex in order to prevent Wilson to going forward with his plans. So he tells him, okay, I'm not gonna forgive you, but I need your help. Dex obviously takes the the advice and decides to help Matt. Of course, this will be something that we are going to see further in the episode, which will lead to people's beliefs. But regardless of that, let's continue. We see the return of Detective Mahoney, which is something that I'm glad to see. I mean, we haven't seen Mahoney for a long time, and now he's here helping our heroes. Yeah, despite everything that happened, despite all the control that Fisk has on New York and some of the people in the elite with police and the ABTF, Mahoney's still a breath of fresh air alongside Cherry and Detective Kim. They're like the only good parts of the police. So Mahoney decides to help Karen, releasing her for a few minutes to talk to Daredevil. So both Matt and Karen talk, apologizing for everything that happened and just wanting for all this to be over, which is something that we're going to see of later in the episodes. But yeah, it seems like everything is forgiven. But trust me, it's still not over, so stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, we see Wilson talking to Mr. Benjamin Hochberg, the man who is prosecuting, or at least is the lawyer who's going to judge, or at the very least trying to convict Karen Page from being a mass murderer and a vigilante. Basically, Hochberg is selling out, or if he was already, in order to make sure that Wilson gets what he wants. In this case, Karen Page behind bars, the bars that he wants to set up so he could kill her behind bars. So Hochberg is doing everything he can. Meanwhile, we see that after Hochberg leaves, we see Heather Glenn talking to Wilson, confronting about how she's going to make the interview, the psychological interview to Karen, how he wants her to be designed as a psychopath, as a sociopath. Basically, make Karen look like an idiot, or at the very least unhinged. And also confronting Heather about the earring that she took from or at the very least she grabbed during the funeral when Heather visited the Wilson's bedroom. So that's something that they confront each other, but that is something that we won't see later on. That is another look of Heather Glenn's descending to madness. We also took a look of Daniel and Bibi Urix. They're arguing with each other. Bibi telling Daniel about all the things that Wilson Fisk has done as a kingpin, killing Ben Urich, her uncle, causing a lot of destruction and mayhem when he was released, how things got worse when he was the mayor, and Daniel trying to turn a blind eye because he knows that he is doing wrong, but he doesn't want to go in flames. He doesn't want to die because he's afraid of what Wilson can do, especially considering that Wilson can threaten not only her, but also Daniel's mother, which is something that is also in his mind as well. And all the while that is happening, we see that Buck is trying to communicate with Daniel, trying to push him into putting Vivi into a location where he could deal with everything. Basically become a cleanup guy like Wesley before him. All the while we see the trial begin, and we see Hochberg's testimony, or the release opening statement, alongside Kristen McDuffie's statement. I should probably clarify, because I made a mistake a few moments ago when I was talking about Governor McDuffie, and it is actually Governor McCaffrey. I'm so sorry. It's just that the names almost blend in together, but that's besides the point. But yes, Kristen McDuffie is the lawyer that we saw in this show, with the friend of both Matt and Karen. So it's good that she's defending Karen this time, that Kristen is trying to fight the good old fight despite everything that has happened. And we see that she's like the little hope for the lawyers, the ones who are good lawyers. But yeah, it is not just Kristen who is alone in this, as we see Matt reappearing again as the lawyer as well. they're co-lawyers of Karen Page, which is something good because we all know that there is a much better superpower than Matt has, other than his abilities to hear and sense things, is his ability to be a damn good lawyer. And that is not a fabrication, that is a fact. Regardless, the trial begins. The testimonies of not only Glenn Powell but also Blake as well. We see and Cole North. Sorry, this is something that we're going to see any further, but Cole North has started to waver a little bit into not always feeling good about the actions that he has taken, especially after joining the AVTF, which is something that I wasn't expecting, I have to say. But regardless of that, the trial is still going. Buck is still trying to get in touch with Daniel to make him leave BB into the location. The trial keeps going, and as the trial is still going around, as we see Kristen trying to confront the AVTF with Glenn Powell and making the statements and the accusations of what they've done. This is something that is being televised, so Governor McCaffrey is watching this and gets in touch with the Attorney General in order to speed up the process into suspending Wilson Fisk as the mayor of New York City. But yeah, it is good to see that there are still people who just had enough of Wilson's meddling and pretty much corrupting system. So things are getting worse for Wilson. And we also see during this episode that all the while the trial is happening, we see that Daniel, already feeling guilty about everything, has a change of heart. Realizing that the woman that he's about to deliver, her best friend and possibly the woman that he fell in love with, now she's about to die in the hands of Wilson and Buck Cashman. So this makes him realize, man, what have I done? And this is the moment where Daniel decides to stop being a coward and actually do something and actually take things serious. Basically, that he wants to redeem himself. So he gives BB her phone, her DID SD card, and telling her that to hide, to go somewhere where Buck or Wilson can find her, and to make it count, which is something that I really enjoy. And this is something that really makes Daniel look a lot more three-dimensional rather than the blind soldier for Wilson's battles. So we see that, and we see that Karen has been being confronted by Heather Glenn. So Heather is doing the interviews that we saw pulling off to Jack Duquesne, aka the Swordsman, trying to ask her the same questions as she did to the Swordsman. And thus Karen, seeing that, realizes that she has to turn the tables. And that is not difficult for Karen to do, because they both confront each other about their relationship with Matt, which is kind of funny when you really think about it. I mean, not only does Matt manage to have a date with Heather Glenn and make her girlfriend, but also with Karen as well. I mean, Matt Murdock is a bit of a player. But regardless of that, they both confront each other about their past, about their views on Wilson and Matt. And this is making Heather a little bit unstable. And we see that through seeing the Muse watching her through the glass of the prison, of the interview room, of course. This is something that makes Heather so mad that she starts hitting Karen. Basically turned the tables on her and is showing more and more how Heather is just losing grip of her control. All the while, we see Matt trying to survive the AVTF as they send the AVTF. Wilson sends the AVTF after not only Matt Murdock but also Kristen McDuffie. Matt gets shot in the leg, so that thing is getting a little bit difficult for him to walk, but he managed to stop the assassins. And speaking of which, we see that McCaffrey has an assassination attempt by one of the assassins that Wilson hires, only for Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye, to stop that assassin. He doesn't kill him, surprisingly, and decides to let him live. But of course he does that, and that is something that we're going to see later on in episode 8. But yeah, all the while we see Daniel and Buck confronting each other. We see that Buck is starting to lose his cool. He starts beating up Daniel in order to find out where BB is. And we see Matt going to the church all with the bullet on his leg. So that is something that is difficult. We see all the shots of our characters. Wilson losing the grip on his city. Karen on prison, still feeling unsure about her future. Matt praying to God about everything to let things happen, to help him with this time of need. And we see Buck Cashman killing Daniel with a bullet. So yeah, the episode ends with Buck remorsed, but feeling like he had to kill Daniel. And that is something that we're going to see in episode 8, The Southern Cross. This is the episode in which we see everything unravel. We have a little bit of a flash forward in which we see Karen and Matt together going to a restaurant that we saw them go in season 2, but then snaps into reality when we see her in the trial, still going around. Matt hasn't shown up after the attack and the attempt of murder on him and, of course, Kristen. We see that Matt is being patched up by Jessica. In the episode before, Jessica didn't want anything to do with this because she has a daughter now and wants to protect her. But then, in the last episode, in the last minutes, we see that she goes to the church to get Matt into the bunker the Punisher set up. We see how they're talking about how to deal with all this, how they're going to end Fisk's grip on New York City, and that is something that we see further. As we later see the trial unfolding on television, we see Wilson still numb, still feeling sad, Buck coming in, telling him that, yeah, Daniel didn't deliver his promise, and he doesn't have to say anything else. With their looks, and they realize of what happened. There's a paper that Buck gives to Wilson, and that is something that is going to be significant later on in the episode. Not at the end, but throughout the episode, almost at the beginning. But regardless, yeah, as the trial continues, we see now Huckberg asking questions to Heather about how she views Karen Page, obviously stating how she is unhinged and unstable. Heather is trying to make Karen look like a very unhinged person. Kristen asking her questions about if that is an actual good assessment, asking her if she actually stroked Karen during the interrogation, something that Heather denies. But then something shocking happens. We see Matt going into the trial, once again re-entering, something that makes Heather uncomfortable, which, given their past history, yeah, that is, wow, that is a lot, especially considering what Heather's mindset might be going with these later episodes. We also see Matt asking Heather about her assessment, and that is something that still makes her more uncomfortable and more making the situation even more awkward than it already is. All the while, we see that Buck Cashman has set up some of the members of the AVTF alongside a fake Bullseye to make a sniping position, to actually kill Matt Murdock when he leaves the trial. So yeah, they're basically making Bullseye the fall guy again. So with all that, we are confronted by one of the most shocking moments, and that is when we see Wilson entering the trial and making a statement of his own. which is something that they both party agrees, both Matt and Huckberg. And this is a testimony that they want to further. And we see Huckberg's very lack of worry, because he feels very confident, because he believes that that Matt is shooting himself in the foot by making Wilson making a statement. And yeah, it just shows how careless Huckberg has become, and how he just went from being a semi-good lawyer to a terrible one, and pretty much a cocky bastard. We see the trial continue. We see Matt pushing and pushing with his questions, showing the footage of Christoph talking about the Northern Star, what they were smuggling, making statements. Wilson threatens Matt to reveal his secret identity when he was whispering something that Matt can hear. But in this case, and that is something that I was at the edge of my seat until I was sitting up, this is a moment where we see Matt become even more fearless than before, because he realizes that the only way to take down Fisk and taking down his empire, he has to put himself on the line. And as the jury continues and Matt keeps egging on and on to Wilson to answer all the questions, he confronts Wilson about the identity of Daredevil, something that Wilson wasn't expecting, because he wanted to make a statement on his own to get Matt by surprise. But that is something that he wasn't counting on. And as the statement goes, Matt Murdock reveals himself as Daredevil. Oh yeah, and this is something that I was sitting up. That basically, I get up in my chair. I got up on my chair when I hear that moment. Matt using his cane as a stick to bounce all the room, making the statement of what he has done, and telling the jury about his involvement in Daredevil, trying to stop Wilson with the Northern Star, with the weapons, and basically declaring that the trial has to be a mistrial, because the juries of New York have no authority, and they were set up by basically Wilson Fisk. That this whole thing was set up by Wilson, and no matter what, they have to realize that they don't have the power to prosecute Karen despite their jobs. That this basically, he goes Perry Mason on this, and that is very shocking. But like I said, Matt Murdock, best lawyer in the world. Although, given the fact that he revealed himself as Daredevil, that is a practice that he won't be able to go any further. The judges decide to dismiss the trial with prejudice, making Karen Page a free woman again. And if you see a little bit on the shot, especially with Heather, she tries to get up and confront Matt, only for Buck to quickly tell her, no, please don't do that. So yeah, and as we saw that, we also see Senator McCaffrey along with Jessica Jones seeing the trial. And after the trial, we see that McCaffrey has making the papers to make sure that Wilson is no longer the mayor. All his assets, all his benefits, all his money and resources are all frozen. And yeah, pretty badass move by the governor. And we also see a little bit of a scene between Jessica and Kingpin, which is something I was glad to see. And as they both, Matt and Wilson, were confronting each other in the exit of the trial of the courthouse, we see that Glenn has set up the fake Daredevil. But believe it or not, during that trial, we saw that Bullseye confronts and kills some of the agents, including the fake Bullseye, which is kind of ironic, considering that Wilson created Bullseye as a fake Daredevil. He used Benjamin Poindexter to be the fall Daredevil in order to frame Matt as Daredevil. And now he's using a fake Bullseye in order to frame Benjamin from being a killer. And that is something that backfires even further, just showing you how much control Wilson is losing. Bullseye takes the shot to shoot to Wilson, only for Buck to get in the way and gets a shot in his stomach, in his chest at least. And this is which are riding suits, which makes everybody taking cover, everybody going into the court, including Wilson, Heather, Buck, even Sheila is there, Huckberg, and some of the AVTF soldiers. And all the while we see Matt, Karen, Kristen, McCaffrey, and Jessica Jones in another office in the lower level. So yeah, things are getting out of control, and we see that finally New York decides to stand up. Bibi makes a statement about Wilson's lies. Wilson, before that, he tries to make a plea to New York to stand together, which is a declaration of war, only for Bibi to turn that upside down, revealing himself as the fake Kingpin during the New York Born Again logos or news that she was pulling off, and showing the people that she has lost, her uncle and now Danny. And that is something that the city of New York sees, and all the people that were declared vigilantes by Kingpin are now dressing up as Daredevil followers. Basically, he is what Jack Duquesne predicted in episode 4. The Daredevil has become less of a man and more of a symbol, which is something that even Daredevil acknowledges that it can be bad if he doesn't do something about it. And all the while, the final confrontation between our hero and villain is seeing how each of them are dealing with everything. We see Cole North hitting Glenn Powell in order to stop him from killing the innocent people, including Angela, confronting them about Hector Ayala's death and how he was a good man, making Cole realize, my God, I killed an innocent man. And that is something that he has to live with. And that is something that he tries to redeem himself of, because he decides to knock down Glenn Powell and let the people in, including Mahoney and the rest of the NYPD. And all the while we see that Sheila is talking to the Attorney General and making the plea to Wilson in order for him to relinquish his charge, or at the very least his duty as mayor. His job as a mayor is over, and Sheila is trying to tell him that he has to take the deal, to go further away, even being banned from New York City forever. Which is something that makes Wilson very, very anxious, and decides not to do it, and goes out of the court and confront everybody, including the people dressing up as daredevils. And we see Daredevil, Matt Murdock dressing up as Daredevil, and alongside Jessica, and with a little help of Angela, they take down some of the AVTF soldiers, and it's pretty much a parallel. We see Wilson taking down Matt's people, and we also see Matt alongside Jessica and Angela taking down Wilson's people. And all of them are in a beautiful symmetry of battles. We see them fighting the hallway. We see Matt's slick agility, as well as his companionship with all the other people. And we see the brutal strength of Wilson Fisk cleaning up all the people there that were confronting him with his brutal strength. It just comes to show you how not that different Wilson and Matt are. So after they both dealt with those people, Matt, alongside his army, alongside Karen, Cherry, Mahoney, Kim, Angela, and all the people dressing up as Daredevil, they are confronted by Wilson, standing all alone on the top, which is pretty much showing you that it's only at the top when you're the king. Wilson is pleading to people. He's telling them, I'm trying to save this city, fight for it. But none of them want to listen, and they all charge at him, making Matt very, very worried and scared, because that is something that he doesn't want to see. All the people packing up like wolves, taking down Wilson and potentially killing him. And that is something that he has to deal with. And in a beautiful, beautiful moment, as we see Wilson being confronted by the people, being wailed to almost to death, we see how Jessica and Matt Murdock go into the top trying to stop the people. And Matt says, enough, enough, that's it. You're better than this. And we see how both Matt and Wilson are in equal ground. And Matt tells to Wilson, take the deal, go leave New York. And this is some of the best moments of acting that I've seen from Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, because there we see them confront each other, telling each other that things have to stop, or at the very least, it's Matt who's telling that things have to stop. And that is something that Wilson doesn't want to do, because he has been all this time trying to fight for New York, but hasn't realized that he has lost control of the city. All the time we see Wilson trying to control New York City, and then he sees that he cannot do it anymore. All the misdirection, all the corrupted officials that he has managed to buy, all the manipulation, all the brutal force that he has implied with the AVTF or with himself, it just shows that he has lost grasp on reality. And Matt tries to tell him, we're done. This is it. New York has to heal. We cannot keep doing this. And that is something that Wilson decides to take. He decides to take the deal. Matt tells him, okay, I understand if you don't shake my hand. Or Wilson tells him that you understand if I don't shake your hand. And Matt says, that's okay. And that is a callback to the finale in season 3 of Daredevil, how they shook their hands when Matt and Wilson were in equal ground as well. But this one is different, because now Wilson cannot go back to the way he was. He can no longer go back to his criminal empire. He can no longer run for mayor again. Things are done for him. And that is pretty much the fall of the empire of Wilson Fisk. And sometime later, as we see Matt and Karen having a little dinner with each other, we see that the police are arrived to arrest him, which Matt decides to take with dignity. He decides that, yeah, I revealed myself as Daredevil, I'm ready to pay the consequences. And that's how the show ends, by seeing Matt going to prison, how everybody's dealing with the fallout. We see Jessica opening her doors for Elliott's investigations again. We see her and Danielle seeing Luke, and yes, that is Mike Coulter coming back as Luke Cage, and that was a beautiful moment. And it confirms everything, that yes, Luke Cage is not only still with Jessica Jones, but also is the father of little Danielle. He tells them that Mr. Charles found somebody else to do his dirty work. And we see Mr. Charles in an airplane giving the 1 million or 1,000 miles card, welcome to the club, they said to him, alongside Bullseye, because Bullseye is now working for Mr. Charles, which is something that I'm going to elaborate later on in the episode. We see Cole North and Glenn Powell in prison as well. We see everybody dealing with the fallout. We see that Heather is starting to loosen it and decides to put on the mask of Muse. And that is something that we're going to see later on in season 3. So yeah, things end on a different note. Wilson is no longer in New York City, as we see him watching the ocean all alone, almost like a different kind of painting now that the old one has been destroyed, and without Vanessa on his side. So things are going to be different for Wilson from now on. And now Matt is in jail, which is something that he's okay. And you know what? After seeing that moment, I felt a little content. I mean, I don't like seeing Matt in prison, but I know that he's already feeling happy that he managed to put this behind him, even though he won't be able to have a normal life again. So let's talk about the finale. It was not only one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen, but it also shows you how much everything is almost the same, from the good guys and the bad guys, how they are both in the same world, in the same coin, how they realize, whether they like it or not, that they are not that different. We've seen our struggles from both heroes and villains. We see Matt realizing of his actions. We see how he has changed Karen Page, how she has become more and more in line with Punisher's mindset. We see Wilson confronting everything that he has done, despite the fact that he's trying to create an empire in a world where he could live with Vanessa and protect the city that he cares about, or what he claims to care about. He realizes that things went out of control, out of his hands, to say the least. And that is something that it makes him very, very, very upset. Things have changed for him in a manner that he didn't saw coming. And throughout the entire show, especially in the last episodes, I thought that with the death of Vanessa, that things were going to change for Wilson, that he was going to resort to his old ways, that he will become even more aggressive, even more unhinged, that he will be even more of a monster than he already was. But in reality, he just was numb. He didn't know how to handle things. He created monsters that he didn't want to acknowledge his recognition for creating, and things just got worse and worse and worse. Matt saw that the same way, but with Matt, it was different. It was seeing the follow his actions, how they all blend in, how the decisions he had to make, that he had to realize that things couldn't continue the same way as before. He already put Wilson in jail multiple times with no avail, with little success. Sure, it all was because of technicalities and because of a snap, even though the show doesn't acknowledge that. But nevertheless, Matt realizes that he has to make Wilson realize of the damage he's causing and take down his empire one way or another, even though he had to put himself in the line of crossfire. Now that he is no longer having a secret identity, things are going to be even different for him as well. Matt is not going to be the same as before, and that's something that we're probably going to see in season 3. But yeah, follow with the finale. It was explosive, it was dramatic, it was hopeful as well, and it was action-packed. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed to see not only the trial scenes, but also the action sequences in which we see Matt as Daredevil. We see the weight and the consequences of every decision that each character makes. Daniel deciding to take a stand. Bibi realizing that she has to step out of the light and not being in the shadows anymore. We see Karen being set free after everything that has happened. We see Heather's own deal with darkness after everything that she is trying to put away. She can no longer escape from her own shadow. And in this case, now that she is now more unhinged, that is something that I should probably mention. During the episode, we see Heather trying to help Buck with the bullet shot that he took. And we see her trying to take the jacket from Huckberg to give it to Buck in order to heal his wounds or to stop the bleeding. We see Huckberg trying to coerce Heather into into run away together, but when Huckberg touches her, she kicks him in her throat, and that is a cathartic moment that I had to admit. Despite my problems with Heather, that is something I'm glad that I saw. Now that Heather is no longer hiding as her psychiatrist persona and wears the mask of the man who tried to kill her, in this case Muse, now things are going to change for her forever and probably become more unhinged and declare war on people as well, making her like the next serial killer that now New York has to deal with. And that is something that Matt has to also confront when he probably comes out of prison. I mean, we all know that he's not going to stay there forever, right? Unless the show detects otherwise. Regardless of that, it was a great finale for everyone. It's good to see the closing chapters for some of the characters and seeing them taking on new chapters. And it was good to see the similarities that both Wilson and Matt had, especially when they are confronted by the reality of their decision. So now let's talk about the return of Luke Cage. So this is something I already talked before about how Luke was absent throughout these episodes until this final moment. It was good to see Mike Coulter once again coming back as our favorite bulletproof hero from Harlem. We don't know what happened to him during that time. Now we know he had a daughter with Jessica, and now that he was working with Mr. Charles, and now he's no longer working with him. But the question has to remain, what happened to him? How did Mr. Charles manage to get a grip on Luke? And more importantly, what happened to the whole King of Harlem story? Now, if you don't remember, in the finale of season 2 of Luke Cage, we saw taking the throne of Mariah Stokes. Mariah unfortunately died at the hands of her daughter when she was in prison. She poisoned Mariah. Now, before she died, Mariah left everything to Luke to make him realize that he's no better than her. That when he becomes King of Harlem, that he will be just as ruthless and evil as she was. But we don't know what happens to Luke. We don't know what happened during that time. We know that after he became King of Harlem, that he was now a show. We saw him in the finale of Jessica Jones season 3, but then now he's now returning, and we see him almost sporting the same look that he wore before in the finale of Jessica Jones, but it's now in a different light. Now he wants to be a much better father and possibly husband to Jessica and Danielle. So I'm glad that I saw that, which lets to believe that what happens to him, what happens to also Danny Rand, because you know that he's gonna return as well. And we saw the footage and some behind the scenes photos of Finn Jones alongside Mike Coulter and Kristen Ritter, and the Defenders are now coming back. But yeah, Finn Jones is coming back as the Iron Fist. I am going to elaborate what will be the speculation. It is also going to be tied up with Spider-Man No Way Home, so stay tuned for that. Now let's talk about Heather. Let's talk about the newest person to don the mask of Muse. So Muse was a serial killer using people's blood in order to make graffiti. We saw the death of Muse. We saw Heather dealing with the death of Muse. And throughout this entire season, we see her trying to pull back from the madness that she was left, declaring herself as a victim of Muse, never wanting to be involved with vigilantes, and willing to sell her soul to Wilson in order to prosecute these people behind masks, because she doesn't believe that people behind masks are good people. But now that she is dealing with the darkness more and more, even Buck Cashman pushing her into being more of a killer, indirectly of course. But yeah, now Heather is going to become the new Muse. You gotta wonder, what kind of things is she going to do? Is she going to have a split personality? Is she now going to kill people left and right? Is she going to take vengeance on all people who declare themselves vigilantes? Maybe even go after Karen in order to hurt Matt and make him pay for his betrayal? It's hard to say, but I'm really looking forward to. And it's something that, given the behind the scenes photos for season 3, that is something that I'm pretty sure is going to happen. And it will have an impact on this season as well. We also have to wonder, what happened to Buck Cashman? Because after the whole confrontation between Wilson and Matt, we haven't heard anything about him since then. It is speculated that maybe he died during the injuries that he suffered at the hands of Bullseye, but we don't know. We have to wait and see. We also have to wait and see in the next season if Mr. Charles is going to be the big bad of season 3. Because after recruiting Bullseye, it is most likely going to be him pulling the strings now because, well, he's still a shady person. Let's not kid ourselves. He works with Valentina de Fontaine, and he's still with the whole guns and weapons smuggling from other countries, from America to others. And let's be honest, that is something that people are going to feel worried about. A lot of people have speculated about who Mr. Charles is. That might be setting up as another person. I've said that he was the son of Leland Owsley, but others have said that maybe he's Henry Gyrick from the X-Men, who was a man who was taking the task of hunting down the mutants and killing them so the Sentinel program can continue. It's hard to say, but we have to wait and see. All I know is that I'm glad that Matthew Lillard is still around. I heard that he's now being cast in the new Superman movie, Man of Tomorrow, doing another job there. So it's good to see that Matthew's getting a lot of job, and it really shows you that Quentin Tarantino's pretty much shoot himself in the foot because he really didn't like Matthew Lillard's acting, and that is something that really shows that Matthew is still beloved by many, and with a good reason. He's a really good person. But regardless, yeah, we have to wait and see what Mr. Charles is going to do. Following that, yeah, where are we left off? What are the plans for season 3? Hard to say. Matt is in prison. Karen is outside. Maybe she's trying to make the Daredevil or the Man Murdock is set free. Maybe the Defenders are going to deal with another threat from New York that is threatening New York and the citizens. We are going to see what happens to Angela Del Toro now that she's the new wielder of White Tiger. We have to wait and see what happens to Buck Cashman. But I'm pretty sure that with everything that we're going to see in Punisher One Last Kill and Spider-Man Brand New Day, the things are not going to be the same in New York City again. But now it is time for me to talk about why I think of Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. I said it before in my videos that I consider Matt Murdock a knight of New York City. And that is something that I want to emphasize, which is something that this show and this finale illustrate more the most. That Matt Murdock, Daredevil, is the knight of law and justice. He also can be the knight of grace and retribution, since given his beliefs of Catholicism, which is something I also believe, that he also is that kind of knight. But I like to call him the knight of law and justice because everything that he has done as Daredevil and as a lawyer, this is something that shows the good nature that Matt Murdock has despite everything. People have said that Daredevil is like a devil in his shoulders, that the more he puts on the suit, the more bones he's breaking, the more he's breaking the law. And that is something that Matt struggled with. And that is something that many people struggle with, this identity. He has been confronted time and time again about his duality as Matt Murdock, his actions as Daredevil, and how everything has a consequence. Matt knew that the moment he revealed his secret identity, that he had to make some changes. And that he had to be different. The things have to be different. And that is something that I'm really proud that I got to see from Matt Murdock, because things are about to change, but he realizes that he had to make the ultimate sacrifice for the benefit of New York City and its citizens. This is something that I always believe, that despite being a lawyer or Daredevil, that he's still protecting New York one way or another. And for me, Matt Murdock is the beacon of hope that New York City needs for the law and for the citizens. Alongside Punisher and Spider-Man, he's caring for New York just as much as they do, because he's putting himself on the line, and given the fact that he no longer has a secret identity, that it's gonna make him realize more and more of the things that he has to do in order to protect New York City. We don't know what kind of changes are going to bring up, especially now that he's in prison. But I like to think that he's probably going to go back to being Daredevil, but in a different way. We don't know how, but I know one way or another, Matt Murdock cares about the people of New York. He cares about the city. And one way or another, he's going to try to do everything he can to protect it. And that is something that illustrates his selflessness, that he's still a very, very giving person, that he can help people despite the odds. And that's what makes him somebody to admire, somebody that we can relate to. Despite his disabilities of not seeing, despite everything that he has lost from family and friends, despite everything that has been put on by Wilson and others, he's still willing to do the sacrifice, and he's willing to put the job, both as a lawyer and as a superhero. That's what makes him a great knight. He believes in law and justice just as much as the other, but he also believes that he has to take matters in his own hands, no matter the cost. And that is something that we're going to see, the fallout of his decisions and consequence. But I'm really glad that Matt got the chance to help New York once again, and that he managed to free New York from Wilson's grasp. So yeah, overall, my overall review of season 2, a vast improvement of season 1, but more importantly, it makes me optimistic for season 3. And I hope that this quality continues into later seasons. Despite everything that we have heard from Marvel, from the firing of the people of the CGI department, which is baffling, with everything that Disney is trying to pull, I'm still glad that there's still good people working on these shows and trying to make it the best show possible despite every odd. And that is something that I'm really glad that I got to see. But yeah, really recommend it. Forget The Boys, guys. I'm no longer caring about this season. If I haven't said before, I will say it already. The Boys I don't like, and that is a personal opinion. But watch Daredevil season 2 of Born Again, because really, it's really beautiful to see. And they managed to improve things from season 1 and trying to take it in a different direction. So I'm glad that I got to see that. So yeah, that's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next week, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know in 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about the Punisher One Last Kill Marvel special. So stay tuned for that. It's another continuation for my view on the Marvel Knight Trilogy that I created. So until then, I've been Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Peace.